You know, Amy, I've heard that song quite a few times, and each time you deliver it differently. And what I really heard today was, may I be humble, may I serve, may I fall in love with this body and the earth. And inside the box, this is our box. It's a temple. This is a box, the smart car, the world, this building, this room. And we always enter, when we wake up in our body, when we enter this room, when we enter our car, when we enter our relationship, when we awaken to a new day, a new moment, in whatever we've created, we have thoughts about that. They're not always great thoughts. Because that thing within us that I was talking about in my opening and Amy was singing about, when she hears that woman under the tree singing, she believes is how she ended, but I think the lyrics before that is, I believe in me. When I hear that voice, when I hear that calling, when I hear that sound in the echo, that truth within me, when I take the time, it doesn't matter what I've created, or where I am, or how small this room is, or how small my thoughts have been. It doesn't matter. Because in that moment, I'm infused with pure potential. And it's like I'm innocent. It's like I begin all over again. That's what, in fundamental religion they call hope. We can't live without it. It pulls us forward. We don't call it hope in metaphysics, because hope is something way off. And although that matches this idea of the calling or the vision, it also affirms one day, one day, and it keeps that good away from us now. So I'm talking about living inside the box because I always speak about where I am on my path and what I most need to hear and learn, because we're all teachers and students. Right? And so I added expansive and free. Right? Because I remember when I was in my teens, oh man, I wasn't as nearly rebellious as Sharon, or as I imagined Sharon was. Or some of you, I just know a little more of Sharon's story, so I'm going to pick on her. But I was pretty, I won't say rebellious, I'll just say resistant. It's not as fun as rebellious. Because, rebellious you dress up and you take out. Resistant, you kind of just stay stuck. Huh? So I was pretty resistant. And I thought, one day I'm going to be free. And I also thought that I had to change the environment of my life in order to do so. Of course, as I grew up and as I entered this teaching and started doing more spiritual work, I realized I just had to change the way I perceived myself. Not it, but myself. Because however I perceive myself, I will therefore project out onto the world. And that's one of the core tenets of our teaching. There is only one, the principle of unity. And everything I think I see is really not there, except it is there in my own mind based on my own knowledge, and that's what I project onto it. So in other words, I objectify myself everywhere. So living inside the box is really not that bad. You have full license, we have full license to be and do and think and create and experience everything we could ever imagine. We don't need to run anywhere to get it, to escape anywhere to get it, to do anything differently, but we do need to think differently. And it is never, ever, 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 ever about the other. Ever. I just went through a process recently, well actually several over the summer, but one most recently, where I'm feeling, and I don't know if you can feel this, or have felt this, or maybe feeling it right now in this moment as to why you were brought here today. But where you're being called to something bigger as far as your own expression. Something's up. Now it's 2012, and I don't know how much 2012 has to do with this. But I put a lot of stock in 2012 without knowing much about it. My birthday is December 12th, so it's 12/12/12. Now, either I'm going to ascend, eject, transform, pass over, or experience the greatest joy I've ever experienced. And I'm up for it. So this is what I call expectancy. And in this teaching, we talk about cheerful expectancy. Something great. You know that song, Something's Coming, I don't know what it is, but it is going to be great. West Side Story. And I've been feeling this, and what it's done inside of me, it's quickened me. It's made me more intense. It's made me, exactly what I don't want to be, which is, I want it now. I want it now. I'm not waiting. I want it now. Because who knows where I'll be on 12/12/12, right? I have a friend who's been fighting cancer for 15 years. Just got really, really bad news. And I'm thinking, everything in our life are symbols that we can look at. And we can go, well, where am I? And what do I want? And am I going to take responsibility? Am I going to rely upon myself to know that myself includes that greater self that has everything within it it needs to procure exactly what I can envision I want now? Trick is, do we know what we want? I feel, but I can't get clear in my mind. I'm feeling it. It's pushing me forward, but I'm not always clear in my mind. Something within me says, and I don't know if this is true for you, if I get really clear, it's going to be limited. If I get really clear, then I'm going to wrap my mind and my focus around this thing, and that's what I am going to experience, I think. It's kind of that time in life. I think everyone's intense. I think everyone is more open. I think people are more willing to take action in their life. And I don't know that people as a collective are really clear on what they want to move forward to, but that's okay. Because something within us knows. And it's happening right here, right where you are, inside what you may think is a box. But truly, there is no veil. There is nothing that stands between what you experience now as who you are and your becoming. Nothing. What if there was nothing? Because we can find a million things that stop us. And our mind goes there first. Notice how that happens. Could be why we don't get clear on what we want. Because we're thinking too much about what we don't want and what we want to leave behind. I have spent a lot of time processing in my mind how to be compassionate, how to be grateful, how to honor, how to love everything I've created, to get ready for this thing that is moving me and calling me, but I haven't spent the time being compassionate, being grateful for, or honoring me. Have you noticed how that happens? We're still outer directed. We're still worried about, want to make it right for, want to lay the groundwork, want to make it easy, want to be gentle, want to care, want to develop as good spiritual human beings, good loving human beings. But sometimes we miss ourselves in the equation. I'm just saying that happens sometimes. That's what I got in that last line. When she hears that woman sing under the tree, she's brought back. She remembers who she is. So we have to listen to our voice. Living inside the box, expansive and free. You see how it can be so, right where you are. So living inside the box is much different than being limited by our perceptions or our patterns of belief. One of the things I know in this teaching is that there is a logical, sequential order of unfoldment. Whatever this creative intelligence is within us, when we tap into it by aligning, listening to it and aligning with it, we are using it. We are one with it. We're not using it, it's using us. It's all one thing. In other words, it, whatever this God is moving through us more freely, more unobstructedly, unobstructively. Thank you. I looked at you and I got the right pronunciation. You just stay there. That's great. You remind me of that. And we get to play more and to let go more and to surrender more because we rely on and have faith in that within us that is always operating and creating in a logical, sequential order. That is, of course, if you believe that the universe is orderly and not random. But this kind of life requires us to not only be patient, be still my heart, I want it now. It asks us to surrender what we think it's supposed to look like. Oh, be still my heart. Right? And it asks us to trust something that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't feel. Oh, oops, we can feel it. We can feel it. We may not know it. We can hear it. We can feel it. We can sense it. And we can be one with it. And we can make our decisions from it. We can let it lead us. Kind of a foolish notion, right? What is this thing? What is this thing called love? Hey, we've been drawn by foolish notions before. So just asking you to just keep your mind open as I proceed here. I think that if we do live inside the box and start right where we are and know where we are, everything is available unto us, that we are uprooted into a gradual experience of a foundational partnership that is constant and clean. And what I mean by that is it's a relationship with our heart. How much time do you spend wanting to be in your heart? And how much time do you spend thinking about being afraid to be in your heart because of what might happen? A constant inner state of conflict. Maybe not constant, but frequent, and we all know it well. I think that when we create this clean relationship with our heart, that we start moving past the state of, what would I say, maybe inertia that's described as, Michael Beckwith talks about the pain that pushes. You know, we stay in the struggle of the pain that pushes until it dissipates and we emerge with this vibrancy, which is calling us forward into vision. So we stay with the pain that pushes until we are called by the vision. Does that make sense? There's that struggle and that conflict of letting go until we're just called. And we don't have to name what we're called to. We don't have to put it in a box. We just have to be in it and allow our mind to be open to receive it. So booster seat. You know, I was thinking about the booster seat, and I kind of giggled. I thought, oh, I'll just call it booster seat. It'll be funny. Everyone needs a good laugh. For me, a booster seat, it's not an ejection seat, ejection seat. It's that thing where we have to come up a little higher to be at level with the table, like kids do, right? So that they can feed themselves and not make a big mess. So for me, I thought that was a great analogy to, we need to lift our consciousness a little higher so that we can be nourished in life by the spiritual goodness and the truth so that we don't make a mess in our life. Now, making a mess can be fun if it's either intentional or it's just received and accepted for what it is when we make it. But we're not usually like that. We don't like making messes. We don't like making wrong decisions. Yeah, we don't like taking wrong turns necessarily, unless we've already preset the intention of being up for the adventure and already calling it good and very good. Okay. So the booster seat gets us up to that level where we can reach for and serve ourselves. We can help ourselves. We can rely upon ourselves to take what we need to take in, right? To be nourished. I'm reading a book right now by Ingram. It's written in 1938. It's a very little book, and I'm falling in love with that book. I don't always fall in love with books, but this one, because it's this small and it's concise and it's to the point, it's called because I have to do so much reading, Wells of Abundance. Wells of Abundance. Now, it's talking about spiritual prosperity in one's life, being spiritually nourished and living a spiritual life. It's also talking about prosperity in all of its glory, but also financial prosperity. And I'm decided that I'm going to weave at the very last minute this book and some of the information into this 2-month series. It states that there are 7 layers or laws of supply. So 7 layers or phases of opening up the supply that already lives within us, that's already been given, to be given out so that it is reflected back. Because this is the law of correspondence, the law of circulation that we teach in metaphysics. Everything that you give out, you get back. Right? It depends with what you give it. We also teach that. What is your attitude? What is your predisposition? Are you giving to get? Are you giving to give? Do you really know what giving freely is? There's charitable giving, there's compensatory giving, and there's free giving. It even states in this book that what we get for the work that we do, the money that we get for the work that we do, is an absolutely equal, in equal balance to the work, not to the work that we do, but to the attitude of giving with which we do our work. And that if we want more money, we need to give freely what we do that we call work. Doesn't mean we don't need to charge for it. It means we need to give freely, knowing what we're really doing is not working, but we are developing and advancing in our skill and our ability to be one with the law of circulation of life and abundance. That's why we do the job we do. How many have had a belief here about the work that they do in regards to the law of supply, in other words, what I give out, I get back, that says I only earn what I deserve? Now, deserve might be by the effort I put in, not mental effort, not physical effort. Well, mental and physical effort, that's what. And how many hours I clock up and that kind of thing. We feel we kind of get back based on that, but we are spiritual beings, and we need to be working with the law of supply on a spiritual level, not a physical level. Because the physical level only is the effect and the condition, the natural outpicturing of how we work with spiritual laws. But we put so much stock in the physical world and the demonstration and the attachment to the demonstration. So, we need to create in our own mind the desire to build our inner supply and let the outer return take care of itself. Building inner supply. Things like appreciation for where we are, gratitude, seeing the beauty in what is, counting the blessings for what we have created, rather than for thinking about what we want to create. Even if what we want to create is bigger and better, even if we can get excited about it, and we can feel it, we're missing something. We're missing feeling that way about right now who we are and where we are. It's fine. It's a fine, fine, fine line. It's a step to be excited about the future rather than be depressed about it or fearful about it. Absolutely. It's a good step. But we need to keep, if we're going to build our inner supply, we need to keep working it back to knowing that everything has been given, and we are that beautiful, potential, shining uniquely as us with everything we have and need right now. That's where we need to be. And for a lot of people, that feels like living inside a box. Because we can't get there where we are. We have to be somewhere else, we think, to be able to experience that. To somewhere else to be able to express the highest of us. That's where pain is. That's where pain lives. You know, what we do as work only feeds 2% of our nature. The 98% of our nature that remains unfed is fed only by building our inner supply, by being in communion with God or listening, by being in spiritual practice, by being in gratitude, by noticing the beauty and the awe and the wonder, by being curious, by coming to ourselves by whatever means, by discovering new means of how to do that. I discovered one. I bought a smart car. Now that may sound very silly and materialistic, but I tell you, I wasn't going for that in the parking lot. I've been in that parking lot for 30 years, and I've had many, many leased cars. And I always say, okay, I'm going to get something easier on gas and cheaper and blah, blah, blah. It's fine. I don't have to worry about it. And then I always go for the big car. Always. Well, I laugh so hard at this car. And imagining the contrast of me in this car. And everyone was laughing. Even the salesman said, you're really going to like it. It's almost like a real car. And the owner looked at him and started laughing and said, I don't think you should be saying that. You know, but in people, they wave and they smile. You'd think I had my clown outfit on. Seriously. I thought, well, how can I dress this car up, you know, to make it really funny? I don't need to do anything to make it funny. Eyelashes, a nose. I think what I really like to do is put one of those keys on the back of it. Because it's like one of those little toys the kids get that you run up and they go like this. Wouldn't that be funny? So how to cultivate things that make you joyful, that make you laugh and feel like you're a kid again, how to do that. Because in that is that innocence and that purity and that non-attachment. You know, we never compartmentalized when we were a kid. We just experienced, right? And that's what I'm doing. That's one of the things I'm doing. What are you doing? So the first level of these laws of supply is a level of absorption. Now, it's the simplest form of supply because in this field, an organism merely absorbs from its immediate surroundings all the elements necessary to its maintenance and growth. So, for instance, you've got a seed. It absorbs the rain, it absorbs the sun, the nutrients from the earth, etc., to grow to its full potential. It receives. But it's also common to the vegetative growth or vegetative state. So if we're not vegetables. But if we live our life from a place of just receiving and relying on everything else around us to give us what we need, we're kind of acting like vegetables. Vegetative state. Or retrograde. Right? And this is the state where we can't really cast a vision because we wouldn't know what it would look like or how to go about getting it. And we just sit and we take in what's around us, good or bad, no matter how it feels. And we identify ourselves by means of that. Okay, so that's the first law of supply. Now that's on the physical realm. So let's talk about the law of supply as a matter of absorption on the spiritual plane. I've already touched on it. It's where you look at everything with fresh eyes. You look at everything with eyes of the soul, not eyes of the mind that need to get something in order to be something or have something or feel something. So I look at you and I see God. I do not see you as who you've created in this moment. I see you for that and all that you are. I see with eyes of my soul. Because the eyes of my soul don't need to know anything because they know something greater. So that law of absorption is mandatory. It is knowing that supply is always ever present inside and outside. But we have to absorb, as spiritual beings, that truth. In other words, on a spiritual plane, the law of supply as absorption works as us opening to receive. the supply. So intelligence created us. We are all that it is. It also sustains us. It created us through love and its own wisdom, because it only knows itself, and it is all that is. So it gives itself to us by being us. But it also sustains us. It's like our breath. We breathe simply, right? We absorb the air. And we breathe. It's very simple. We just receive air. We don't think about it. Unless we are maybe punched in the stomach, get the wind knocked out of us, or maybe asthmatic, like I've been most of my life, where you can't get breath. Yeah. Then something happens there, and that's the second law of supply. And it's a matter of force. And so when you can't get breath, you are forced to fight for breath. You're forced to fight for something that already exists. So that second law of supply is called force. And force is part of the animal kingdom, because most animals use extreme force to take what they need from another in order to survive. That's on a physical plane. But on the spiritual plane, the law of supply as a matter of force is to be more assertive, to stand in one's truth and honor oneself at whatever cost. That is not a wrong thing. And it's not using the will to get what you want on a spiritual level. It's using faith to procure, because faith is what produces. Will holds faith, holds our mind towards faith, but faith, in effect, is what produces. So that's the second law of supply, a matter of force on the spiritual plane. But you can see how, as human beings, there are many that actually use force to get what they think they don't have from somebody else. See, both these levels talk about supply, and we can't talk about living inside the box and being happy where we are and starting where we are if we don't understand what supply is and how to relate to supply and how to manifest from supply. Because that intelligence within us, as I said, not only created and is supply, created us and is supply, it is the manifest universe, but somehow it has to be sustaining the universe too. So if we are all that it is, we have the power to sustain everything that we create. We do it mostly with our physical body, fairly well, because that's pretty base to our survival. But some of the other things that aren't as base, we think, maybe, because our own ideas of who we are not get in the way, we hold out here. Like lots of money, lots of love, right? Lots of fun, whatever. Whatever those things are, they kind of sit out in this dream state. They kind of hang out here because, they're not really that important. Okay. I'll just leave that one with you. Jesus did not say that salvation or peace of mind, joy of heart was free. In fact, he told the rich young man that it would require of him everything he had. Give it and it shall be given. Give it and it shall be given. So here we are. We have to open to receive it that is already within us. And we also have to open to give it, with no attachment to the outcome. Nothing can be truly ours until we have given value in return for value received. Nothing can be truly ours until we have given value in return for value received. So what that says to me is that we must be very clear that there already is value in our life and livingness in the world. It is not the world that owes us anything. We must function in the world, in the booster seat, from a spiritual plane, which is the plane in which we exist as spiritual beings, in which consciousness creates, and the only place where we can change anything or manifest anything in our life. We must be sitting in the booster seat to lift our own consciousness. And therefore we must give ahead of what we get. If we want to raise anything, the money that we make, the love that we have, we need to move to the higher level and give more of it than what we think we are getting. It is the way that we survive in sheer delight and in our inherent birthright. It is the only way, and you can apply it to anything. It's not about instant gratification. I mean, sitting in a booster seat, they can feed themselves, reach for the goodies, throw it on the floor, and an hour later be crying because they're hungry again. And so can we. This whole instant gratification thing, even though healing is instant, even though transformation is instant, pick up your bed and walk. Done. Our work is in how we need to move our mind in order to come to that state of belief where we can receive the truth, where the veil is not thin, where God and I are one. That's the work. The rest is a natural unfoldment of the law of life, of the law of the creative process, the law of cause and effect. So I want to share with you just a short example before I close. I think I've shared this before, but it was really appropriate for today. And it's about this doctor who was working on a treadmill. He was watching the television early in the morning and listening to a sermon of his favorite preacher. And the preacher was talking about how awesome God was, this intelligence was, and it was so big that you really couldn't ever understand it or even embrace it. Saying things like this intelligent breathes stars out of its mouth, and that there's huge raging balls of fire, and the doctor's, is on his treadmill and having a good time, and he's thinking about everything. And then he said, and this intelligence also knits bodies together with amazing detail and wonder. So all of a sudden, being a doctor, he stops. Now he's really relating to this idea. Bodies. God. And he says, I'm loving it at this from a medical standpoint. He said, and I was always remembering how I was constantly amazed during medical school as I learned more and more about God's handiwork. I remember so many times thinking, how can anyone deny that a creator did all this? So he said the preacher went on to talk about how we can trust that the God who created all this also has the power to hold it all together when things seem to fall apart. How this loving intelligence is also our sustainer. And the doctor said it was then he lost his breath, not because he was doing exceptionally well on the treadmill, but because of what he next heard. The word that came out of the preacher's mouth was laminin. And laminins are a family of proteins that are an integral part of the structural scaffolding of basement membranes in almost every animal tissue. Laminins are what hold us together. They are cell adhesion molecules. They are what holds one cell of our body to the next cell, and without them we would literally fall apart. Without laminins. So honor the laminin. Honor the laminin. Now the doctor said, I knew this already, but what I didn't know is what they look like. Anyone know what they look like? They look like this. Cross. This teaching symbol of the science of mind is very similar to the cross. The point where God and man meet, there is no veil. There's only wonder, awe, mystery, the joy, the peace, and the love that we were inherently born to experience, to be, through our expression. That same point in this teaching symbol is right here. It is where the spiritual realm descends into matter, into the physical form. It is at that point where God, or this intelligence that lives within us, is present and sustains us in the level of our physical realm. But it is up to us to lift our consciousness and sit in that booster seat, to be able to know that when we are here in our experience, we are also all that created it. That gives us freedom. That gives us an expanded sense of self, of possibility, and of life. And that helps us, my friends, to be happy and grateful exactly with who we are and where we are. And so it is. So it is.